to shape real events in a real world. We cannot adopt a policy which says that if something does not happen or others do not do exactly what we wish, we will return to Fortress America. That is the policy in this changing world of retreat, not of strength. More important, to adopt a black or white, all or nothing policy subordinates our interests to our irritations. Its actual consequences would be fatal to our security. If we were to resign from the United Nations, break off with all countries of whom we disapprove, end foreign aid and assistance to those countries in an attempt to keep them free, call for the resumption of atmospheric nuclear testing, and turn our back on the rest of mankind, we would not only be abandoning America's influence in the world, we would be inviting a communist expansion which every communist power would so greatly welcome. And all of the effort of so many Americans for 18 years would be gone with the wind. Our policy under these conditions in this dangerous world would not have much deterrent effect in a world in where nations determined to be free could no longer count on the United States. Such a policy of retreat would be folly if we had our backs to the wall. It is surely even greater folly at a time when more realistic, more responsible, more affirmative policies have wrought such spectacular results. For the most striking thing about our world in 1963 is the extent to which the tide of history has begun to flow in the direction of freedom. To renounce the world of freedom now, to abandon those who share our commitment, and retire into lonely and not so splendid isolation would be to give communism the one hope, which in this twilight of disappointment for them might repair their divisions and rekindle their hope. For after some gains in the 50s, the communist offensive, which claimed to be riding the tides of historic inevitability, has been thwarted and turned back in recent months. Indeed, the whole theory of historical inevitability, the belief that all roads must lead to communism sooner or later, has been shattered by the determination of those who believe that men and nations will pursue a variety of roads, that each nation will evolve according to its own traditions and its own aspirations, and that the world of the future will have room for a diversity of economic systems, political creeds, religious faiths, united by the respect for others and loyalty to a world order. Those forces of diversity which serve Mr. Washington's national interest, those forces of diversity are in the ascendancy today, even within the communist empire itself. And our policy at this point should be to give the forces of diversity, as opposed to the forces of uniformity, which our adversaries espouse, every chance, every possible support. That is why our assistance program, so much maligned, of assisting countries to maintain their freedom, I believe is important. This country has seen all of the hardship and the grief that has come to us by the loss of one country in this hemisphere, Cuba. How many other countries must be lost while the United States decides to end these programs of helping these people, who are getting poorer every year, who have none of the resources of this great country, who look to us for help, but on the other hand, in cases, look to the communists for example. That's why this program, I believe, is important. It's a means of assisting those who want to be free, and in the final analysis, it serves the United States in the very real sense. That's why the United Nations That is why the United Nations is important. Not because it can solve all these problems in this imperfect world, but it does give us a means in those great moments of crisis. And in the last 2.5 years, we've had at least 3 when the Soviet Union and the United States were almost face to face on a collision course, it does give us a means of providing, as it has in the Congo, as it now is on the border of the Yemen, as it most recently was in a report of the United Nations and Malaysia. It does give a means to mobilize the opinion of the world to prevent an atomic disaster which would destroy us all wherever we might live. That is why the Test Ban Treaty is as important as a first step, perhaps to be disappointed, perhaps to find ourselves ultimately set back, but at least in 1963, the United States committed itself and the Senate of the United States by an overwhelming vote to one chance to end the radiation and the possibility of burning this hemisphere. It may be, as I said, that we shall fail, but anyone who bothers to look at the true destructive power of the atom today and what we and the Soviet Union could do to each other in the world in an hour and in a day, and to Western Europe. I passed over yesterday the Little Bighorn where General Custer was slain, a massacre which has lived in history. 400 or 500 men. We're talking about 300 million men and women in 24 hours. I think it's wise to take a first step to lessen the possibility of that happening. And that is why our diplomacy is important. And that is why our diplomacy is important. For the forces making for diversity are to be found everywhere where people are, even within the communist empire. And it is our obligation to encourage those forces wherever they may be found. Hard and discouraging questions remain in Vietnam, in Cuba, in Laos, the Congo, all around the globe. The ordeal of the emerging nations has just begun. The control of nuclear weapons is still incomplete. The areas of potential friction, the chances of collision still exist. But in every one of these areas, the position of the United States, I believe, is happier and safer when history is going for us rather than when it's going against us. And we have history going for us today. But history is what men make it. The future is what men make it. We cannot fulfill our vision and our commitment and our interest in a free and diverse future without unceasing vigilance, devotion, and most of all, perseverance, a willingness to stay with it, a willingness to do with fatigue, a willingness not to accept easy answers, but instead to maintain the burden, as the people of this state have done for 100 years, and as the United States must do in the rest of this century, until finally we live in a peaceful world. And therefore, I think this country will continue its commitment to support the world of freedom. For as we discharge that commitment, we are heeding the command which Brigham Young heard from the Lord more than a century ago. The command he conveyed to his followers: go as pioneers to a land of peace.